Imagine that you're a newly trained electrician. You've been working this pretty stressy gig for about a year, working under master electrician Ashok and his team. You're out in the field with your new colleagues, setting up a newly built house with power outlets, when you suddenly notice your colleague Watson has made a grave error while setting up the grounding for the electricity cables. You assume that Watson is too busy to notice the mistake, as he's covering up the last parts. In case your observation is proved to be correct, a loose wire or a faulty device connected to the electricity system could very well lead to electrocution and death for the new homeowners. But at the same time, you don't want to be the new guy who troubles and annoys his colleagues and thinks that he knows better than everyone else. Should you say something? This scenario is a classic example in showcasing a work term called psychological safety. The term was coined by Harvard professor Amy Edmondson and essentially means the belief held by members of a team that it's okay to take risks, to express their ideas and concerns, to speak up with questions, and to admit mistakes, all without fear of negative consequence. In Edmondson's earlier research, she described people as impression managers, which means that people are unwilling to engage in behavior that's either uncertain or potentially harmful to their image. In the daily interaction with others, people face what she coined interpersonal risks, where Edmondson posits 4 specific risks that can threaten the image at work: being seen as ignorant, incompetent, negative, and disruptive. First, whenever a person asks a question or seeks information, they risk being perceived as ignorant. You might have been in situations where you don't understand a certain point, but you're very hesitant asking for clarity, as you're worried you might be the only person in the room with doubt, and thus run the risk of being perceived as ignorant if you ask it. Secondly, when admitting to mistakes or asking for help, individuals risk being seen as incompetent. If you're showing your boss that you failed at doing a certain task that he was expecting you to do, it could be a clear threat to your image in his eyes. Third, in organizations, it's often vital to critically assess your own and team's performance. Oftentimes, what's stopping this necessary process is the risk of being seen as negative. If everyone at the board meeting is celebrating the promising future of the new product, it can be extremely difficult to take on the critical voice, asking whether that certain feature is really benefiting or hurting the company. Fourth, to avoid being perceived as disruptive and intrusive, people will often avoid seeking feedback and help from colleagues. Despite the benefits that you could get out of a simple, "Hey, what do you think about my performance these past weeks?" it might be incredibly difficult to actually take that step. Hence, Edmondson uses the term psychological safety to refer to whether individuals are willing to take those interpersonal risks at a workplace. In a psychological safe environment, people are more willing to believe that they will not be penalized for making mistakes or seeking feedback, which fosters learning and growth. It can also lead to better decision making, as more people sharing their views leads to more diverse perspectives being considered. So, how do you actually create psychological safety at work? To really answer this question, Edmondson particularly emphasized the role of the leader as a driver for creating psychological safety. One effective method for leaders is by being accessible to the team and personally involved. If the employees always feel like they can approach a leader, asking or telling whatever is on his mind without suffering any punitive measures, it can lead to better organizational outcomes. Secondly, a leader can foster psychological safety by acknowledging fallibility and taking interpersonal risks themselves. In Edmondson's text, a leading surgeon repeatedly told his team, "I need to hear from you because I'm likely to miss things," to create an open dialogue environment. But is it really just about being nice? No, not quite. In fact, many polite workplaces don't have psychological safety because people feel suppressed by the enforced niceness. So hopefully this gives you something to think about. If you one day stand in place of the great master electrician Ashok and one of your new apprentices spots a mistake that, if pointed out, could save you a lot of money in the end.